Hello guys, welcome back to Tales by Inyoloa. I am Inyoloa. If you're new here, welcome. Thank you for coming. Where have you been? We've been waiting for you. If you're not new here, welcome back. So today we are starting something new. This particular episode is going to be one of a series. So I think I mentioned here that okay, no, I've not mentioned it, but I was studying the book of Matthew, and more especially the story of or the part about the life of Jesus from birth to his death. And I think as a Christian, if you've not sat down and done an in-depth study of the life of our Savior, like the whole point of this salvation, then I think that you should. If you've done it before, I think you should do it again. But basically, this series is going to be a series about some lessons that I think that we can learn from the life of Jesus. Yeah. In fact, there are many lessons that we can learn, but this series is just going to be about some of them. This is the first part, and I hope that we enjoy this series. Okay, so let's jump right into it. We're looking at for this particular episode, we're going to be reading from Matthew chapter 27 from 45. So let's go. This episode is, how do I even put it? This episode is about the when Jesus died on the cross. There's just a particular verse or a particular statement that was made that just stood out to me. And that's what this episode is about. So, Matthew 27:45. Now from the sixth hour unto the ninth hour, there was darkness over all the land. 46. And about the ninth hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That is, my God, why have you forsaken me? Now, 47. Some of those who stood there when they heard that said, This man is calling for Elijah. Immediately one of them ran and took a sponge, filled it with sour wine, and put it on a reed, and offered it to him to drink. 49. And this is the one that really got to me. The rest said, Let him alone. Let us see if Elijah will come to save him. And I act like I literally paused here after reading this verse 49. And I just pictured that scene. Jesus is on the cross. He's at that point where the sins of the world, all of us, past and present, are on him. And God has to look away. He's literally, for the first time, cut off from the presence of God because God cannot look upon sin. And he cries out, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. My God, why have you forsaken me? This is Jesus, the Son of God. Somebody that has never left the presence of God, experiencing what it means for the very first time to not have God, like to not have the presence of God, basically. He cries out. But these people feel like he's calling out for Elijah. And made this statement, said, the rest said, Let him alone. Let us see if Elijah will come to save him. And what just stood out here is the fact that these people felt like this thing that Jesus was going through was something that Jesus needed to be saved from. If you ask them, what do you think is the ideal situation right now? Like, what's the ideal thing that should happen? They wouldn't have told you that this guy should die. They would have said, the ideal thing that should happen to me is that Elijah will appear from heaven, or the angel will open heaven and come and save him. Then, we know that this guy is really the Son of God. Or like, that would be the most spectacular thing that could happen. That would be the most exciting thing that will happen. And it just contrasts to what actually happened. Jesus died. And by that singular act, he saved, like, the number of souls that have been saved by that singular act, me and you inclusive. Sometimes I feel like every one of us must have just imagined something. Imagine if Jesus did not die for us. Like, the thought of him not doing it is just so terrible that you don't even want to think about it. You are just so grateful that he died, that he made the sacrifice. But some people thought that this thing that Jesus was doing, this thing that Jesus was going through was so bad that he needed to be saved from it. And it just made me realize, and this was the Holy Spirit speaking to me, It's not every bad situation, or it's not every hard circumstance you go through that you want, that you should be saved from, or that you should escape from. There are some things you must go through for some certain outcomes. Now, this was in a season of my life when God had literally told me, you're about to enter a particular season that things are going to be hard, but don't worry, I'm with you. He told me some certain things, and he said, I want you to go through this season because of something. I want to bring out something out of this. So don't be bothered. You might be feeling pain, or it might not be easy, but don't get agitated. Don't feel like I've deserted you, because in it I'm with you. Go through it, because at the end there's something I want to do that you understand only after you have passed through this particular situation or circumstance, that you will feel like it's hard. And it's just like Jesus. Imagine God telling him, this is the plan. I want you to go to earth. You will suffer, be a human, like come to earth, a God literally come to earth and become a human being, do all of that. You won't even be rich, you will even be poor, like you'll be one of the lowest classes. You will pass through so much. And the worst part is, for some moments, you will be cut off from my presence. I will not be able to, I will forsake you in quotes. Like imagine God telling Jesus the plan, and Jesus is like, why? Like, why do I have to go to the earth? But then God tells him the outcome. You will do this to save billions and millions of people. You will do this. If you don't do this, look at the number of people that will be going to damnation. And Jesus counted it. Jesus counted you and I worth it enough to pass through all of that, to die, to do this thing that every human being felt like he should be saved from. And it just I don't know why this particular lesson is just so important to me, because it just makes me realize that it's not every bad thing that you're passing through that you should pray to get out of. No, sometimes, and I feel like not even sometimes, every time maybe something hard, or you're passing through a certain thing, talk to God, ask him, God, why is this happening? Is this something that you are okay with? Is this something that you are allowing me to pass through? Is this your will? So that you won't pray it away. For example, imagine if God cannot force, would not have forced Jesus. God cannot force Jesus to give it. If Jesus decided that he didn't want to go to the cross, Jesus wouldn't have done it. You cannot force. Just like God will not force us humans, we have the freedom of choice. If Jesus said he was not going to do it, he would not have done it. So likewise, if God puts you in, allows you to pass through a situation, or puts you in a particular circumstance, or let something happen to you, and instead of asking, okay, God, is this something that you are using to work out a better plan for me? Is this something that you are using to work out something good? You don't do that. You are praying, God, please get me out of it. Or you use your own efforts to get yourself out of that situation. You might be surprised that you might miss out on something really great that God is trying to work out. Let's also look at another example. And this is in the book of Acts. It's in Acts chapter 8. It's in Acts chapter 8. And if you read from the beginning, it's about persecution and everything. But let's read from verse 3. As for Saul, he made havoc of the church, entering into every house and hailing men and women, committing them to prison. Verse 4. Therefore, they that were scattered abroad went everywhere preaching the word. So, there was a lot of persecution in the early church. Saul was chief among the persecutors. But what was the outcome of that persecution? People, the Christians, people that believed in Jesus, scattered, trying to escape the persecution. They went to many different places, and the gospel was spread as a result. Imagine if they were not persecuted. Like, imagine if they were all comfortable in their comfort zones. Maybe some of us will not have the opportunity to be Christians. Maybe the gospel will not have gotten to the ends that it has gotten to. Imagine if they all gathered together and prayed this persecution away. God cannot force them. Like, imagine if they prayed really hard, like, God, truly, we don't want this persecution. We don't, like, they must have even prayed about it, but God must have seen that the outcome, or the what do I put it, the results of this thing that they are passing through far outweighs this current suffering. It's just like where they say there's a part of the Bible that says that for the present, what we are passing through or the correction we get is hard, but at the end, it's for a good cause. It has a positive outcome. Basically, what I'm saying in this video is that whenever we pass through hard circumstances or we go through difficult times, we should come to God from a place of, Lord, is this your will? And if you find out that God is like, yes, I'm allowing this for a certain reason. I'm allowing this because don't worry, at the end of it, you come out better. It's just like when a mine or a goldsmith is telling the gold, don't worry, right now you're about to go into a refinery, you're about to be purified. It's going to be painful, it's going to be hurtful, it's going to be hard and difficult. But when you come out, if you don't go through this, you can't become valuable, you can't become useful. You will be gold, but just gold, just a stick of gold. I cannot turn you into something that is valuable, something that will be bought for thousands, millions. I cannot turn you into something that will be sought after if you don't pass through this process. So just like that gold, sometimes God has to allow us pass through the refinery. Sometimes God puts us in difficult circumstances so that we can come out better, so that we can come out refined. The lesson from this video is just this. At every point in time, every difficult situation, ask God, know God's stand. If this is the will of God for you, then pray for strength to go through this situation so that you can come out better on the other end. It is not every persecution that you should avoid. It is not every persecution that is bad for you. There are some difficult things that you have to pass through so that you can come out better on the other end. Gold should always pass through refinement if it wants to become useful. If you learned something from this video, please like it, give it a thumbs up, share it with other people. If you have anything to say, if there's any difficult situation or circumstance that you passed through but ended up being for your own good or bringing out a positive result, please put it in the comment section. I will see you again next week, Friday.